Yes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I will give about another minute or so for the room to fill up. We have a lot of participants today with us. So welcome. Welcome, everyone. All right, so I'm about to get started. As everyone is entering the room, I'm just here to welcome everyone and make sure that everyone settles in. Feel free to use the chat feature or to ask any questions in the Q&A function. We will get started momentarily. Okay, with that, I'm going to get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Catherine Ramirez Mejia. I am with the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition, and today you are taking part in this Know Your Rights webinar. We are sharing this webinar over Zoom. You were able to sign up over our website, but we're also streaming this live on YouTube. So welcome everyone that is here. I'm excited to have you as part of this presentation. As a reminder for those that are able to, you can ask questions using the Q&A feature, and we will do our best to respond to your questions. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So if you are new to the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition, we are an organization that primarily conducts policy advocacy, both on the state and federal level. In addition to organizing, we have organizers that work with grassroots organizations across Massachusetts in pro-immigrants. We also have a citizenship application assistance program. So that is for those that are already legal permanent residents and are looking to become naturalized citizens. And so our vision here at MIRA is a commonwealth and a nation where all can thrive, no matter where they came from or how they got here, and all can fully participate in their community's social, economic, and civic life. As I mentioned, if you do have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature, whether you're on YouTube or on Zoom with us today. However, the basis of this training will cover Know Your Rights information for yourself or for those in your community. We will not be going in depth into policy updates or any background immigration topics. I would like to invite you to some upcoming trainings we have. On February 13th, we have an ABCs of Immigration training that covers the background of immigration and immigration statuses. And then on February 27th, we will be talking about immigration policy updates. And then for those of you that are interested in becoming an immigrant advocate and want to learn more how to get involved, we have a training on March 13th. And on March 27th, we'll have rights and resources and benefits for immigrants training as well. So as I go through this presentation, I also invite you to check out our Know Your Rights page. I'm going to have QR codes to the Know Your Rights page on our Mirror website throughout this presentation. But on that page, you will also find this exact same presentation in Spanish, in Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. And we're going to have upcoming live presentations in Haitian Creole as well. So please, I do encourage you to check out our Know Your Rights webpage, the same place you signed up for this presentation. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started with Know Your Rights. I'd first like to remind everyone that we all have basic rights under the United States Constitution, regardless of our immigration status. And it's important for us to assert these rights and protect our basic rights. So I understand that right now is a time of stress. It's a time of uncertainty. I myself am an immigrant. I come from a family of immigrants. And really, the best thing that we can do right now is learn about immigrant rights. We can learn about our rights. We can practice asserting our rights, and we can prepare with our families. So that includes making sure that we have important documents safe and a place that we can access them quickly if needed. And we can also learn who we can trust for legal advice. So some of the content that I'm going to be covering today might be difficult to understand, but I encourage you to please come back to this training. It will be recorded, and study the content again and again. I'm going to begin by walking us through an overview of immigration enforcement. So there are three main agencies in the Department of Homeland Security. The first is the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. The next is Customs and Border Protection. And the following is Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And I'm going to walk us through the definitions of each. So USCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, they review applications and conduct interviews for those that are applying for asylum or for a green card or a special visa, or renewing their work permit or applying for citizenship. So in the image you see here, this individual is receiving a letter from USCIS and potentially being invited to an interview at the USCIS offices. So they're expected to go in person to their offices and receive an interview or fill out any forms with USCIS. Now, USCIS can grant status to people who qualify, but they can also deny applications. Now I want to talk about Customs and Border Protection, CBP. So they patrol the border within 100 miles of the US border. So if you can see the image here of the United States, in yellow is designated the area that they patrol 100 miles of the border. So what does this mean? This means that if you are driving in a location within 100 miles of that border, for instance, you could see a sign like this one that says enforcement zone. And you could possibly come across a checkpoint. So you could possibly be stopped at a checkpoint within 100 miles of border. And then I want to talk about Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE. So ICE conducts immigration arrests, detentions, and deportation removals. In this image, this individual is wearing a vest that says police or ICE. However, ICE agents are sometimes dressed in casual clothing, so they may just be wearing a t-shirt and jeans. And they may drive unmarked vehicles when attempting to make an immigration arrest. So you may be wondering, how do people come in contact with immigration enforcement? They may come in contact with immigration enforcement via the criminal system. So if they're coming in contact with the criminal system, they could potentially be coming in contact with immigration enforcement. It can also be when applying for benefits at USCIS or while having a removal order or criminal charge. So if this individual already has a removal order or a criminal charge and they're applying for a benefit at USCIS, they potentially would come in contact with immigration enforcement. In addition to that, it would be through raids and targeted enforcement. So who is at risk of deportation? Well, it's anyone who is not a US citizen can be vulnerable if they fall under the ground of deportation, such as criminal charges or a prior order of deportation. So this can include those that are unauthorized or undocumented immigrants, but also people with asylum or refugee status or some other form of protection. This can also include lawful permanent residents and non-immigrants, such as those here on a student visa or a travel visa. Again, it would be those individuals who fall under a ground of deportation, such as criminal charges or have a prior order of deportation. So what are some reasons for deportation? Well, it can include lack of lawful status. That could be a reason. Again, it could be criminal reasons. So if someone has a drug conviction, or possibly it could be for domestic violence or violations of a protection order. It could also be due to theft or fraud. And sometimes minor and non-violent offenses can lead to mandatory deportation, even for green card holders. And lastly, it could be due to security-related grounds, such as gang involvement or terrorism. So I'm now going to talk about knowing our rights when interacting with immigration enforcement. What to do if immigration comes to your home? We first advise you, do not open the door unless the officer provides you with a warrant signed by a judge. So you can ask the officer to identify themselves. You can ask them to identify their name, their agency, or their ID, and ask if they have a warrant signed by a judge. So you hear the knock, you're keeping the door closed, you can speak through the window, or you can just speak with the door closed, and you can ask, the officers to identify themselves, and ask to see a warrant signed by a judge. You can also use a Know Your Rights card. It's a wallet-sized card, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. And you can slide that card under the door or press it against the window. And you have the right to remain silent and to speak to an attorney. You do not have to answer any questions about your immigration status or when you entered the country. And you can state to the officer, I request my right to silence and to an attorney. And this is when you would want to call a U.S. citizen friend or family or an attorney. So we have Know Your Rights cards available on our website to print. You can also take a photo of it on your phone. But essentially, these cards remind you to not open the door, not answer any questions, not sign anything, and to show the card to the officer through the window or under the door. We have these Know Your Rights cards available in over a dozen languages, including Spanish, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. And I provided the QR code here. So this is what the Know Your Rights cards look like. So on one side, they remind you to not open the door, to not answer any questions, and to not sign anything, and to give the card or show the card to the officer. On the other side of the card, this is what you would show the officer, either on the window or you would slide it under the door. And what you're showing the officer is this message. And you do not need to know how to say this message, but you can show the message through the window. And it says, I do not wish to speak with you, answer your questions, or sign or hand you any documents based on my Fifth Amendment rights under the United States Constitution. I do not give you permission to enter my home based on my Fourth Amendment rights under the United States Constitution, unless you have a warrant to enter signed by a judge or magistrate with my name on it that you slide under the door. I do not give you permission to search any of my belongings based on my Fourth Amendment rights. I choose to exercise my constitutional rights. So again, by using the Know Your Rights card, you are asserting your rights to the officer. You do not need to know how to say any of this language, but you are communicating to them that you know your rights and that you are asserting your rights. So before I talked about a warrant. So again, if you hear someone coming to your door, you do not open your door. You ask that individual to identify themselves, their agency, their name, their ID, and you ask for a warrant signed by a judge. If they do not have a warrant signed by a judge with your name on it, then do not open the door. You do not need to open the door. So you can keep your front door, back door locked, windows locked. You do not need to open the door unless they have a warrant signed by a judge with your name. And I will recommend as well that you make sure, if they do have a warrant signed by a judge, you make sure that it is your name clearly written. So make sure that the first, middle, and last name are your names, your correct names. This is just an example of what a warrant signed by a judge may look like. So you can see here in the yellow arrow shows the signature by the judge. I want to take a moment to talk to you about driver's license. So here in Massachusetts, we are still celebrating the fact that immigrants, regardless of their immigration status, may be eligible to get a driver's license. So if you live in Massachusetts, you may be eligible to get a driver's license regardless of your immigration status. Now, I would like to remind everyone that you should only be driving if you have a full driver's license. So if you have a permit, you should not be driving alone. It is against the law. If you have a permit, you must be driving with someone in the car next to you that has been driving for over a year, is over the age of 21, and is sitting next to you. And I provided a QR code here as well. You can take a picture on your phone, and we have more information about how to get a driver's license. So what to do if you're stopped while driving? Well, we advise you to stay in the car and place your hands on the steering wheel. The officer may ask you your name and your address, and you must provide your name and address. However, if you are driving with a passenger, if there's anyone else in the car, anyone in the back seat, they do not need to answer any questions. Only you need to answer questions if you are the driver. You can use that Know Your Rights card, and you can give it to the officer. You can show it to the officer. And it reminds you that you have the right to remain silent. Now, the police can search your vehicle if they believe you have been involved in a crime. But you can say, I do not consent to the search. And please never provide false documents. What should you do if police stops you in public? So if you're stopped in public, you can remain calm, stay calm, do not run, and do not resist arrest. You can say, am I under arrest or am I free to leave? You can remain silent. You can say, I want to speak to a lawyer, and ask, can I call a lawyer? So, as I mentioned earlier, right now is a time of stress and a time of uncertainty. But what we can do is prepare by learning our rights and learning how to assert our rights. And we can practice asserting our rights. So we can practice using the Know Your Rights card. We can practice by memorizing phone numbers of families and friends that we can call in case of an emergency, and memorizing the phone number of a lawyer. You can also prepare by thinking about a US citizen or someone with immigration status that you trust who can pay bond if you are granted one by an immigration judge. If you are stopped in public, police can search you if they have reasonable suspicion that you are armed and dangerous. I would also like to remind everyone that if you are over the age of 18 and you have valid immigration documents, the law requires that you carry those documents on you. So let's say you're a legal permanent resident, you have a green card. The law requires that you carry that document with you. And never provide false documents. I also want to mention that it's important to think about your safety. So in this training, we are sharing with you your rights. However, it is your decision to assert your rights if you feel safe. If you are in a place in daytime, you have friends or family around and you feel safe to assert your rights, then that is your decision. If you find yourself alone at night and you don't feel comfortable to assert your rights, then that is your decision. But remember to think about your safety. So just an update, the Trump administration has announced that it will move to quickly deport individuals who entered without permission and have been in the US for less than 2 years, without giving them the opportunity to go in front of an immigration judge unless they pass an initial asylum screening. So what this means is that if you've been in the United States for more than 2 years, you should carry proof that you've been here for more than 2 years, such as your proof of residency, or any school or work or medical records. So any documentation that you have that can prove that you've been here for more than 2 years would be important to carry around with you or have copies of during this time. If you've been in the US for less than 2 years, but you are already in deportation proceedings or have valid parole status, carry evidence of that. Immigration could still try to place you in this fast deportation process, but would first have to take steps to close out your immigration court proceedings or end your parole. If you have a pending immigration court case, there is a link where you can check on the status every day to check for any changes. And we encourage you to contact your lawyer or seek legal services if you see any changes. And just a reminder to everyone, advocates are already pushing back on this broad application of the expedited removal process, and stay tuned for updates. So now I would like to talk about arrest and detention. So if you are arrested or detained, you do not need to sign anything. And do not take voluntary departure of the United States. First, speak with a lawyer. Do not listen to immigration agents about your rights. First, speak to a lawyer, and you have the right to remain silent, to call a lawyer or family member, and to be visited in detention by a lawyer, and to contact your consulate. So this presentation is being recorded. We have the slides for this presentation available on our website so that you can access the links, such as where to check the status of your case, but also this link about how to find someone who has been detained. I would like to take a moment now to talk about bond. So immigration enforcement can choose to place individuals it is trying to deport in immigration detention. If that individual is detained, They may be able to request release on bond while their case is pending. So what that means is they would be released from immigration detention and are able to go home until their next court hearing. And how much does bond cost? Well, it can be set as low as $1,500, but many times it can be a higher amount. But it is important that you show the judge that you are going to attend future immigration court hearings and that you have strong family and community connections. And as a reminder, only someone who is a US citizen or has lawful immigration status should go to immigration to pay that bond for you. All right, we just covered the Know Your Rights portion of the presentation, and I'm now going to talk about family preparedness, so how you and your family can prepare together. So on our website, and I provided the QR code here so you can take a photo on your phone, we have these family preparedness packets. They're available in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole, and they help you and your family prepare for an emergency if you are separated due to immigration. So the family preparedness plan will help you and your family and your children have conversations about who will take care of your children if you are unable to. This will also include information about your child's education or their medical needs and any plan that you have to reunite with your family. So if you have already thought about how would my family reunite if we're ever separated, this family preparedness guide will help you have that conversation with your family. So let's review what is included in the family preparedness plan. Some of what is included is how to protect your information. So if you have children in school, you can speak to the school and ask that they remove your family's information, maybe your phone number or your email, from the school directory. So making sure that your information is not on the school website. You can also ask that you and your family are removed from any school social media if you do not want your photo or your name or your contact information on the school website or their Facebook or Instagram pages. You can also update the school contacts. So you will reach out to your child's school and you will provide them with the name and phone number of an adult that you have identified to pick up your children from school if you are unable to. So this is a trusted adult, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's an aunt or uncle, or someone from the church that you trust to pick up your children if you are unable to. You can also register your child's birth with your foreign consulate. So let's say you've decided that you want to, if you were separated from your family, you would want to reunite with your family in your home country. Well, by registering your child's birth with your foreign consulate, it would make it easier for your child to travel or to move to your home country. During this time, you can also apply for passports for your child if they are eligible. Most governments require that both parents give permission for the child to get a passport. But if you have sole legal custody or a specific court order, you do not need the other parent's permission. During this time as well, you could also write a travel letter. So if you have made the decision or are thinking about how your family would reunite in another country, then your child may need a travel letter so that they can travel with that trusted adult to get on a plane and be able to travel to meet you in another country. So I'm now speaking to parents. Parents, you have rights. You have the right to make decisions about your children, no matter your immigration status. You have the right to not share information about your children. However, if you are the main caretaker, you might want to tell immigration if you are arrested or detained. You have the right to arrange who will take care of your child. And if detained, you can ask for a phone call and ask to contact your children. If your children are in foster care, you can still take part in the child welfare meetings while you're in detention and even after deportation, unless you have lost your parental rights. But remember that being detained or deported does not mean you have abandoned your children. In the family preparedness packet, as I mentioned, it will walk you through the process of having that conversation with your family and your children and any trusted adults about who would take care of your child if you're unable to. Now, there are 4 options that you have when thinking about a trusted adult to take care of your children. The first option is an informal option. You would talk to someone you trust and you would let them know that you trust them to take care of your children in case of an emergency. Now, you can either write it on a piece of paper or speak to them, but just by speaking to that individual, they would not have the legal rights for your child's school or doctor's visits. And a great example for this is a godparent. So for instance, I'm a godparent, I have godsons, and just being a godparent wouldn't give me the legal rights to my godsons. Now, another option is using a caregiver authorization affidavit form. That form is found in the family preparedness guide that I talked about before. Now, if you decide to fill out this form, it gives the caregiver that you've identified, whether it's someone you trust in your family or your neighbor or your church, it gives them the right to make decisions about your child's health care and education for 2 years. You as the parent would keep all your rights, and you can end this contract at any time. But to fill out this form, you need the signature of one parent and 2 witnesses, and it must be notarized. So you can notarize it at your local library or anywhere that provides notary services. The third option is a temporary agent authorization form. This form is also found in the family preparedness packet I talked about. but it allows the person that you have identified to take care of your children. It allows them to make any decisions a parent can make for your child, including about property and finances. And this would be valid for 60 days, but it can be renewed. And for this form, both parents must sign if they're available, and the form must be signed by the individual that you are having take care of your children and also 2 witnesses. The last option is guardianship. So a legal guardian would have all the rights a parent has and would exercise these rights instead of the parent. And this would be obtained through the courts. So through guardianship, through legal guardianship, this trusted individual would make decisions instead of you, the parent. And again, this would be through the court system. So you have 4 options when thinking about who to take care of your children. So earlier I had mentioned that if you have immigration documents, legal immigration documents, and you're over the age of 18, it's important to carry those documents on you in case you are stopped by immigration. In addition to that, I mentioned that if you have proof that you've been in the United States for more than 2 years, such as a lease or any school records or medical records that show that you've been in the United States for more than 2 years, it's important to have those documents with you in case you are stopped by immigration. But it's also important to keep these documents, copies of the documents or any of these documents at home in a safe place. So that can include things like passports, family birth certificates, marriage licenses, insurance documents, or any emergency contact information. So in case of an emergency, who can the family contact? Have information about how to, a lawyer that you have identified, or that trusted individual that can take care of your children, or possibly one of those forms that I talked about, such as the caregiver authorization affidavit. It's always good to review immigration documents that you have. Make sure that you didn't miss any meetings or any important appointments or dates. Make sure to always open your mail from USCIS if you have any, and keep up to date on any important meetings and appointments. It's also important that your family members know where to find these documents in your home in case they need to access them quickly. So, as I mentioned before, you have rights if you are stopped by immigration enforcement, if they come to your door, or if you're stopped in public or stopped while driving. And then I encourage you to go to our website to print out the family preparedness packets that can help you and your family prepare for an emergency and to help have those conversations with your children. Also, let your children know about how to use their Know Your Rights cards and to not open the door for anyone unless that individual has identified themselves as an ICE officer or police officer and has a warrant signed by a judge with one of your family members' names on it. So with that being said, I'm now going to start the next portion of this training, which focuses on benefits and public charge. So you may be wondering, My family uses benefits such as food stamps or healthcare. Can I continue using those benefits? And the answer is yes. If you or your family members are eligible, you can continue using those benefits. So what is the public charge test? Maybe this is your first time hearing it, and I want to explain what it is. So the public charge test is part of the application review by government officials to see if an immigrant applying for a green card or a visa to enter the United States will likely primarily depend on the government for support in the future. So again, let's say someone is applying for a green card or legal lawful permanent residence, or are applying for a visa to enter the United States. In their application, the government officials will review their application and look through it and think, will this person depend on government for support in the future? Will they primarily depend on the government for support in the future? So who does this apply to? Like I said, it's for immigrants applying for a green card or a visa to enter the United States, but it does not apply to immigrants that are already US citizens, that are renewing their green cards, that are refugees or asylees, that are here on a T or a U visa, or that have DACA. So for many immigrants, public charge does not apply to them, and it does not apply to all immigrants. So as government officials are reviewing the application and they're thinking about, will this person primarily be dependent on government support in the future? They're only considering two benefits. They're only considering if this individual has been receiving cash assistance, so that can include temporary assistance for needy families, supplemental security income, or state programs like emergency aid to the elderly, disabled, and children. And they also consider if this individual has received long-term institutionalized care at government expense, like a nursing home or a psychiatric hospital. So those are the two benefits that are considered: cash assistance or long-term care. And as a reminder, if your family members are using that benefit, it does not count towards your public charge determination. Now, we have a list of benefits that are not considered under the public charge test. So these are all benefits that are considered safe to use in Massachusetts that are safe from public charge. So that includes healthcare programs like Mass Health and community clinics. So it's safe for you to access Mass Health and community clinics, and also safe for you to access rental assistance if you need it, such as Section 8 or EA shelters or public housing, or food programs like SNAP and WIC, and for your child's meals, school lunches, and also cash benefits from work if you have unemployment or Social Security and pensions. And we have a list of all the safe benefits that are safe from public charge in Massachusetts, and a QR code provided here. You can take a photo on your phone. But remember that you do not need to be a U.S. citizen to get benefits. Some benefits are available to immigrants of varying immigration statuses. And you can apply for your children if your children are eligible. So for example, you can apply for your US citizen children, even if you are not eligible as the parent. However, there are some benefits that do not require social security numbers or proof of immigration status for the parents, but they may still require parents to verify their income. I now want to talk about where to get legal help. So we should only be listening to two individuals for immigration legal advice. The first is an attorney or lawyer that has a valid license to practice law here in the United States. So if they have a valid license to practice law in a different country, make sure they have a valid license to practice law here in the United States because laws are different in other states or other countries, I mean. So make sure that that attorney or lawyer has a valid license to practice law in the United States. And the second person that you can listen to for legal advice is an accredited representative. So this is someone that is working for a nonprofit organization and has received training and special authorization from the United States government to help people with immigration cases. So, for instance, here at Merit Coalition, we have accredited representatives because we are a nonprofit organization. And we have accredited representatives that can help with those looking to become a naturalized citizen. So those that are already lawful permanent residents and are looking to become naturalized citizens. Now, you should not be listening to notary publics or notarios because they are not lawyers and they cannot provide legal advice. You should also not be listening to interpreters or tax preparers. So you may be requesting the help of an interpreter to translate your immigration documents, but you should not be receiving legal advice from interpreters or tax preparers because they're not qualified to provide you legal advice. Now, if you or your family or anyone you know has given money to someone that said they were an immigration lawyer, they said they were going to help you on your case, and you lost a lot of money and you lost a lot of time, we encourage you to file a complaint that you've been a victim to fraud. So I've provided the phone number of the Massachusetts Attorney General office for you to file a complaint, as well as the phone number of the Immigration Court Fraud and Abuse Prevention Program. If you are looking for legal services in Massachusetts, we recommend that you use the Massachusetts Legal Resource Finder. You can go to this website or you can go to Google, type in Massachusetts Legal Resource Finder. There's a QR code here as well. The city of Boston also has free consultations. And if you're looking outside of Massachusetts, we recommend you use the Immigration Advocates Network Legal Directory. I know that I covered a lot of the material quickly in this 1-hour presentation. Again, it will be recorded, it will be on our website, and we will be sharing it out as well. I'd also like to invite everyone that's watching this presentation, if you would like to send a letter to your legislator We have a QR code here for all Massachusetts residents so that you can send a letter to your legislator about protecting our immigrant communities. So we are standing firm as an immigrant organization, and we're asking you all to help us as we stand together to protect our immigrant communities. We also ask if you are looking to volunteer or use your skills, share your story, to fill out our petition, and I provided the QR code here as well. You can sign up to volunteer or share your story on behalf of immigrants as an immigrant community. I also want to let everyone know that we have an upcoming event on March 19th, Wednesday, March 19th, will be Immigrants Day at the State House. It will be our 29th annual Immigrants Day at the State House. So this is a day where we welcome you and immigrant advocates to come to the Massachusetts State House, and we will all be gathering and talking together. So we really welcome you. There's a QR code if you want to participate. And this is a time where we can all come together to the Massachusetts State House in Boston on March 19th at 9 a.m. So as I've completed this webinar, I want to remind everyone to please go to our Mira website. There's a QR code here. Go to our website to find Know Your Rights materials. So you can find the Know Your Rights cards, the cards that remind you to stay silent, to show the card to the officer through the window or slide it under the door, to call your attorney. So we have those printable cards on our website for you, as well as those family preparedness packets. So you and your family can have those conversations about what you would do in case of an emergency. We encourage you to remind your children and your family members to not open the door unless an officer has a warrant signed by a judge with your name on it or a family member's name on it. Again, do not open the door. And on our website, you can also find recordings of this presentation in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole, as well as posters and handouts about Know Your Rights, and many more resources. We also have upcoming trainings on ABCs of immigration. So it's an overview of immigration statuses, and also an upcoming training on policy updates if you're interested in learning about that. So please do go to our Mira website. I thank everyone for being part of this presentation today. And we know it's a stressful time for everyone, and we hope that you now know your immigrant rights. You now are going to practice asserting your rights, practice using your Know Your Rights cards, and have conversations with your family. Thank you everyone for being a part of this presentation. We will be updating our Know Your Rights webpage with any more resources as we have them. Again, thank you everyone.